Formerly a newspaper reporter in South Florida, Naomi Shibles interned at Women's Day magazine and interviewed celebrities including Randy Jackson and Hugh Hefner for various publications. She's a member of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators and the Authors Guild. She lives in Charlotte, North Carolina, with her family. Naomi, take it away.
Hi, thanks for having me. Okay. No one moved, said a shaky voice. Florian leaned against the doorway and held his pulse gun level with their heads. He used both of his hands, which trembled and jerked the barrel's aim from Murgatroyd to Bjorn to Doodle and back to Bjorn. Respectfully, Mr. Florian, said Bjorn, we don't have time for this. The authorities are on their way, and so is your father. Florian glared at Murgatroyd. You'll have to take it up with them. Now, hands in the air. Carterlock smacked the desk and abruptly stood, stuffing his jumble of external ravens and tethers into his pockets. We're done here. Let's go. Florian saw Carterlock, gasped, and fumbled his gun. Bjorn, Doodle, and Murgatroyd ducked as its barrel swung past them. Are you Carterlock from Ancient Escapades? Asked Florian. You bet your sweet ass I am. Now don't vex me and move aside. Florian slumped against the wall as Carterlock strode past him through the doorway. I'll meet you in the cellar, said Doodle, jogging into the main hallway. Wait, the motion alarm, Murgatroyd called. Carterlock disarmed it, said Bjorn, pulling Murgatroyd toward the cellar stairs. Don't worry, Doodle is indestructible. As Bjorn, Carterlock, and Murgatroyd emerged from the tunnel hatch onto the estate grounds, sirens wailed and they registered the electric pulse of forces mobilizing. We have to leave, said Carterlock. Oh no, groaned Murgatroyd. He kicked out defensively despite Augustus and his crew being 30 feet away, the entire bloat free of his net. Bjorn scanned the area for a rake or pool skimmer, anything that could be used for defense. The knowledge of his father's treachery energized him with outrage and recklessness. Their path to freedom was barred by a mere spray of mini hippos, and there was no way he would let the little slugs stop them. Augustus bared his teeth as Bjorn raised a decorative rock above his head like an ancient warrior. Toes splayed in the grass, the hippo faced him, lowered his head and charged. As Bjorn gathered the wherewithal to smash Augustus with the rock, a cabbage whizzed by his head and landed to the right of the hippos. Several of them veered toward the vegetable, but Augustus and his primary soldiers continued their siege. 7 zucchinis and a bunch of carrots flew past, landing to the left of Augustus. The rest of the hippos peeled off from the charge and snarfed carrots like chocolate truffles. Augustus paused. As the little tyrant flattened his ears, Doodle ran by and dumped a full basket of butter lettuce in front of him like an offering to the sun. Augustus cut Bjorn a scathing look as if sizing him up and finding him lacking. He stomped his hoof and then bent his snoot to the produce, indulging in his bounty. Why didn't I ever think of that? Asked Murgatroyd, gazing at Augustus, snorting down salad. Because you have a hard heart, said Doodle. He tossed the basket aside. Their path clear, they raced to Claudette and jumped in. Sirens screamed nearer, and Bjorn's scalp tightened. He had to get to his mother. Murgatroyd pressed, flicked, and dialed various knobs and switches, welded to Claudette's console, and she rose into the air. She floated toward the wall and hovered about 25 feet off of the ground. Why are we so low? Asked Doodle. Murgatroyd stomped on a pedal and banged his fist on the dash. Sweat beaded at his hairline. I think we used too much helium getting in. Slug slime, said Bjorn, past caring about his own safety. He cracked Claudette's door and slipped out. Doodle hung his head over and waggled his eyebrows as Bjorn, who swung hand over hand across Claudette's chassis as if it were monkey bars. He grasped the second red loop of wire hiding in her booster and yanked. The rubber gourd dropped and helium hissed inside. Bjorn's dangling feet rose farther above the lawn. It wasn't high enough. His eardrums felt like they would shatter under the weight of the sirens. From the corner of his eye, he saw Florian emerge from the house with an electric rod, scattering the hippos across the turf. Murgatroyd maneuvered Claudette to the perimeter of the estate, her nose to the wall. They were still profoundly lower than they had been on the way in. Bjorn pulled himself up and onto Claudette's roof and then bounded onto the top of the wall where he gingerly grasped the iron spikes. "Let's run for it," said Carter Locke, looking over his shoulder at the flashing lights of the authorities painting the hedgerows in a teal glow. "I'm not leaving, Claudette," said Murgatroyd. "We can jump from the top of the wall onto that plant and climb down before they get here," said Carter Locke, pulling himself up onto the wall. Bjorn squatted and locked gazes with Doodle, whose spoiled mohawk bobbed as he mimicked Bjorn's nod. No way were they going to let Murgatroyd lose his treasured vehicle, especially after he chopped her up and turned her into a flying machine for this caper. "Come on." Bjorn hauled Doodle up next to him. "Are you slimeballs seriously leaving me here like this?" Murgatroyd stared up at them like a lost child. Bjorn reached down and flicked his ear. "You think so little of our friendship? We're not leaving you, slug. They'll trace Claudette back to me in an instant, even if I go with you." Murgatroyd's gaze darted around. "Come on, we're a gang now, aren't we? No lad left behind or thrown under the tram." Doodle and Carter Locke hung from the iron spikes like spider monkeys and rolled their eyes. "Pause the dramatics and give us a hand," heaved Bjorn. He had grasped Claudette's shell, along with Doodle and Carter Locke. They were leveraging the flying machine floating below them with sheer human strength. Murgatroyd gave a crooked smile and joined them. They pulled Claudette an inch at a time up and over the wall and its spikes as the authorities bore down on the estate's entrance. What an airborne Claudette lacked in vertical power, she made up for in horizontal speed. They thumped into their seats, and Bjorn felt the air slice as she raced away from the chaos. But the authorities had caught her scent and pursued, relentless as wasps. "Duck!" yelled Doodle. They narrowly missed being decapitated by a mass of oaken branches. Claudette swerved through the airspace above the neighboring estates. "Get off of the private property," said Carter Locke. "You're going to trigger a drone attack." Murgatroyd veered toward the hedgerows that marked the boulevards and openly traversable airspace. Speed was their only hope. "Go, go!" Bjorn's own house flashed past, and he choked. Doodle's head lolled against the back of the seat, his eyes closed. His skin was ashy, and the blossom of blood on his shirt was fresh, bright red petals. Bjorn pressed his hands against it, trying to keep the life force inside of his best friend. Murgatroyd alternated his concentration between the street and his rear view monitor. The authorities continued to gain on them, but the lead squad car, made of light polymers, bumped against a priceless live oak tree like a loose balloon and stalled. The remaining vehicles zipped after them. Murgatroyd punched at his controls, and looking back, Bjorn saw a hatch open in Claudette's quarter panel. A river of viscous orange liquid shot from it into the air, splattering across the squad car behind them. It halted suddenly, smoke pouring from its hood, and was immediately rammed from behind by its brother. The vehicles floated to the side of the road, rumbling and throwing sparks. "What was that?" asked Bjorn. Doodle perked up. "That was Aurelia. Some of it flew into my mouth." He licked his pallid lips. "You squirted the authorities with soda?" It was so ludicrous that Bjorn had to admire Murgatroyd's moxie. "It has been shown to have caustic qualities," said Murgatroyd. "Plus, it was all we had." He revved Claudette's engine, and they streaked through the air toward the Western Common. Thank you.